in parks, and next week some of the exercise classes will be resuming indoors as well. We have health and wellbeing services, including our Full Stop service, where we have falls prevention navigators who support people age 50 plus who have previously fallen or at risk of falling. And the navigators support people to access services to help reduce the risk of falling and support independent living. People are invited to attend Tai Chi, yoga and balance and strength classes to help reduce the risk of falling and also build confidence. And these groups are going to be starting up again over the next few weeks. We've got our memory care service, where people are supported from the point of diagnosis. So support that we provide includes helping to understand the diagnosis, accessing support, information and advice. Our health and wellbeing navigators also work with older people who are living with complex health and social needs to identify and link with services that help maintain and promote their wellbeing, including reducing isolation and accessing activities. We've also got a home-based support service offering domestic care and personal care for people in their own homes. This is a chargeable service. We offer a telephone and online advice service on all aspects of later life, such as welfare benefits, housing, accessing benefits, housing, and accessing services. So we're looking to, it used to be an in-person, we used to have a drop-in at our offices at Bushell Park Library, and we're looking into resuming that back in person in some capacity in the foreseeable future. We've got a team of ICANN navigators who work with vulnerable adults aged 18 plus. They use a holistic approach to identify the needs they have to live a healthy and independent life. So they work with people living with dementia, diabetes, at risk of falling, who've had a stroke, and people who are at risk of social isolation. And there's also regular tea and chatter social groups, which are currently being run on Zoom, but again, in the next few weeks, we'll be starting back up again in person. We have a weekly memory club where we offer reminiscence, creative and social activities for people living with dementia and their family members, which is actually returning in person next week, which we're very excited about. We have the Parker Centre, which is a specialist dementia centre supporting people aged 50 plus who have early memory problems through to those with more advanced dementia, offering a stimulating and supportive environment with ranges of activities, freshly cooked food and transport options. And then we've also got our Digital Connections project, where we've got a committed and knowledgeable volunteer who can provide digital support to get people connected with Zoom, emails, and generally problem solve issues they might have with connecting digitally. So sorry, I know that's a real whistle-stop tour of Age UK services, but yeah, after this event, our services leaflet will be made available with all the information on. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Jane to take over.
Thank you so much. Sorry, everybody, I had a bit of a blip with my internet, but I'm back now. So thank you so much. Yes, I think Age UK do so much that it's worth having a look at their internet and what they do, because I think it's only touched on this, to be fair, on all the different services. They've been amazing over the whole of COVID. They've been doing so many things online. I've actually seen that, witnessed it, and it's been amazing. So well done to Age UK for keeping everybody buoyant during this period of time. Thank you. I need to back a little bit just so we can actually make sure that everyone knows what's happening today. So hi, I'm Sue Jane. I'm the one that you lost earlier in the meeting. I'm actually the community outreach officer, trapped behind a computer screen at the moment, but hoping to do more outreach out there, actually physically out there very, very soon. In fact, we're out there on Saturday at Eppington Green Shopping Centre. So if you're there, give us a wave in the afternoon. For those that don't know us already, we're a community interest organisation providing a number of free services in Enfield. That's signposting, which is a public health line, one-stop shop for information about health and social care services within Enfield.
I'm sorry, folks, just to protect Sue Jane's internet, which is obviously having some
problems. We do a lot of research. We engage with local communities and states and you hear me now?
Yes, only just Sujay.
Can you hear me now?
Sujay, I'm just asking people to turn off their cameras and go
Okay,
off to mute so we can hear you more clearly, hopefully.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. It's always great. So yes, we also present our research to service providers and work with them to help improve, promote their services based on your feedback. So it really is important to tell us what you think, problems you're having, and then good experiences. Love to hear the good stuff too. Today, we're talking about Dying Matters Week. And there's no right or wrong way to die. It'll be different for everybody. But it's important for families to think about it, to talk about it, and to plan for it. We've already heard from Kate, but we have a great panel of experts who provide fantastic support service and help people at a grassroots level on a day-to-day basis. So I'll leave it to them to talk about that at the moment. So you've already met Kate, which is fantastic. Thanks, Kate. The next person I'd like to have a wave is actually Hannah. Hannah, are you there? Can you just put yourself on camera so we can see you? Thank you, in a little wave. Fantastic. She's from the North London Hospice. Thank you, Hannah. Both Hannah and Kate were involved in the later life planning event in January, and we'll share the recorded event link in our chat box, so you've got that handy too. We've also got Trudy Layton, who's also from the North London Hospice. Trudy, can you go onto camera so we can see you, please? That's great. A little wave would be great. Thank you so much. And last but not least, we have Dr. Kumar, Ramasan, Becca from North Middlesex Hospital End of Life team. He is relatively new to Enfield, but has a wealth of experience in end of life care. So welcome to Enfield, Kumar. Give us a little wave, please. Thank you. Thank you, Kumar. So, as you've already seen, we're starting with a short introduction from each of our panel members. Then we'll read out questions you've sent to us at the time of booking, or you can ask them yourself if you've opted to do so. And our panel members will answer the questions according to their areas of expertise. We'll do our best to keep the conversation free from jargon, as we want to encourage you to use the chat box too if anything is not clear, and we'll try and clarify as we go along. And likewise, type any additional into the chat box as we go along, and if we have time, we'll get to them after the pre-submitted questions. This is a regular topic, and we've had quite a few questions already. We'll get through as many as we can. So, like we say, can you please accept the speakers, go onto mute and keep the background noise down. And we plan to finish at 3:30 or before. And just want to say this has been an extremely difficult year, and this is the second later life planning event we've run, as the topic's been so poignant during the pandemic. As we know, it's a case of when, not if, but we all have to address the topic of dying in one way or another. So it's important to share information and options in an informal, non-judgmental environment, as it can be hard to talk about this topic. It can be considered taboo or even wishing it on yourself. So I hope you take something useful away from this event today and reach out for help and support if you or your family or loved ones need it. And later life planning can be a really positive thing and help put people's minds at rest. And I'm sure our speakers will explain the ways that this can really help people. So let's not hear any more from me. Let's now hear from Dr. Kumar from North Middlesex Hospital, who is the nurse consultant for the end of life care. Thank you, Kumar. Over to you.
Thank you. As I said, it's 2 months I'm in Enfield, but actually I have a history of researching in East London how to enable local communities to access St. Joseph Hospice in 10 years ago. So I'm here as a nurse consultant for an end-of-life care in North Middlesex Hospital. And you are aware, we are a local acute hospital, and it's a very busiest hospital in one of the busiest hospitals in London, and we care for 350,000 people in and around Barnet, Enfield and Haringey, and also we get a patients from Hertfordshire County. And so what is my team is actually, we have a hospital palliative team which got a 4 medical consultant and 1 nurse consultant, me, and 5 clinical nurse specialists, and also we have a lead clinical nurse specialist for palliative care, and also we have a psychologist, chaplains, social social service from the social service team, and also dietitians. So we have a really big multidisciplinary team, and our palliative service runs 9 to 5, Monday to Sunday. That means 7 days. There is a specialist service is available in the hospital. I think though we cater 350,000 people, and it's around 1,000 to 1,200 people die in our hospital settings. So that means we nearly 30%, 300 patients, the nurses and doctors, they reach out us because they are really have a complex needs during the last days of life. So we provide a complex specialist advice the team, and also we provide we empower, we train them, all the nurses to deliver, nurses and doctors and the whole MDT to deliver a fantastic end of life care. So basically we are thinking about, our vision is to provide outstanding end of life care. That's why they employed new jobs, and we are still recruiting bigger teams. We are growing, and our clinical team. So we want to tell you, I mean, hospice, we closely work with the hospice, and also we have a Haringey palliative, community palliative team. So we are closely working with our partners, and we have one of the key thing is that the place of death is a very common, and normally, not normally, expected prepared place of death is at home, and we have a rapid discharge facilitator. Basically what she does is, if anybody wish to have a preferred place of death or care at home, we help them, the discharge facilitator, enable the discharge to be fast tracking and discharge to home, and we look after, make sure that all the medications and all the families are safe, and so everything is prepared. I think we have last week I'm attending some meetings in our audit meetings. We discharge the patients within 4 hours of the time limit it took 2 to 3 days also. So, and also we discharge patients in the last hour. We discharged one patient who died within 1 hour. So that kind of best service we are trying to provide for the local community. So it's an exciting time now. Hopefully we are post-COVID season. So I think the things are, we really, our staff and our local community and globally, we really suffer a lot of deaths in last 1 year. And I think we are now, I can see there's a 28, including me, we are brave enough to talk about death and dying, and how we provide a better care. My key message, what I learned in my life is when we plan something good, we will have a good end of life care. So we need to plan, we need to talk, plan, then we will have a peaceful end of life. Thank you so much. And
thank you, Kumar. I love the positive message that you've just given us, that planning actually helps, and it's a really positive thing. So that's great. I think people often associate end of life care with something very negative, and in my experience, I didn't find that, because I was actually in a former life, as I call it. I was actually working at Age Concern back in the day, and I was actually arranging funeral plans. Someone said to me, how can you do that? How come that must be so depressing and negative? And in fact, it was the opposite, because I was helping someone with their last trip, as I described it, their last journey. And it could be something really positive. And people used to walk out of the room feeling relieved that it had been listened to, that their needs being addressed. And it was a really positive thing. So I think this is where today, I think it's really important to focus on those really upbeat messages, because I think people need to hear that, and they're more likely to talk about it if they know that's something that's available to them. Mm-hmm. So Hannah, I'm hoping you're going to actually carry on with that theme for us.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so pleased to hear you say that, because that's some of the questions that I've seen you send us is all about discussing that. So I can't wait to get on to talking about that. And I think my internet's okay. So if anyone does want to come and put their videos on, it's lovely to talk to faces and virtually face to face. So feel free to. Before I start, I'm going to, I always feel like I'm coming, I feel at home when I do Enfield events, because there's quite a few people on this call that I know through other meetings. So hello, everyone I know. But before I do any hospice chat, I always start off by just acknowledging that we've been around about 30 odd years, since 1984. We're quite well known, so I know there's people in the audience that will have connections or previous knowledge about the hospice. So I hope that from wherever you're coming from today, that you're able to take something away from my little bit and our wider piece. And I'm literally just going to do a very quick sort of look through our front door, because we haven't been able to have people doing our normal tours and open days. I've got a few pictures to show you, so hopefully that'll be useful and meaningful for people. If not, I'll be quick and you'll be able to get onto we'll be able to hear from you in the interesting bit. What I would also say is I'm going to put my information there. If anyone would like to ask their question privately, or just pick up anything and explore it privately afterwards, that's brilliant as well. Do contact myself and I can signpost you to one of my colleagues or Trudy, and we can help you. So in a nutshell, the hospice is a charity and we provide speculative palliative care services for people across Barnet, Enfield and Haringey. We serve a population of over 1 million and help about 3,000 people and their families and their friends and their healthcare professionals every year. So you know, we're quite a big hospice within London, and we're one of 200 within the UK. One thing I'm going to add as well is if I move positions, it's because I've got a wayward puppy in the house as well who is wanting to come in. But anyway, so just before I start, that was a little bit about the hospice, and I'm just going to share my screen now. Oops. Hang on. Here we go. Right, I'm just going to do view. How do I do slideshow? Thanks, everyone. Can people see that? Okay, cool. So really, we have such a broad range of services at the hospice, and each one could be a conversation for about an hour, but just to give you a flavour of the type of things that we can explore later in your questions, this is what we offer. Our values very much follow the modern hospice movement, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in the next slide. We can have a chat about how to access our service. Who are the people who are at our first contact centre over in Barnet, and a little bit about how to do a referral. We can explore a little bit more about the care in the hospice, either at our inpatient unit or our health and wellbeing centre over in Winchmore Hill, or we can talk about care at home. What people might not realise is that 95% of our patients are cared for at home by our Enfield community team. We can have a chat about the other care for patients in terms of the support we give them around pre and post bereavement, the family practical support, trying to encourage, we're aiming for every patient to have a Coordinate My Care plan. And we can chat about that a little bit more during the discussion. And that's really, if people, or put that up in a link, Sue Jane, a bit more about that. I can talk for hours about that. And then also we could explore the community action. I know one of the questions that I've seen is around how you're going to reach the communities. Well, that's very much my role. A bit like you, Sue Jane, I'm looking forward to getting back out into the community, going to meet people where they're at, trying to work out who we should be talking to. But when I go there, not just talking at people, because that's boring, really. They've got so much information to take in, but also to ask them about how can we help them? What do they need from us, and try and work in tandem with them. You know, working on what's going on well already. Our Compassionate Neighbours is our befriending scheme, which goes alongside the hospice, and that is our brilliant group of volunteers who are matched with people who have a chronic or potentially life-limiting illness. And it's like a befriending scheme, but it's with that extra layer of support around being prepared to talk about death, dying, loss and grief. And as I mentioned before, my email's down at the bottom if anyone wanted to pick up anything. So my role, I suppose, when I go out and chat to the community, is a bit of myth busting, really. It's about removing a bit of stigma around talking about death. Oh, I don't like talking about death, or it might make it be closer if you talk about it. And what I might say about that is that I might make people aware that it's okay to mention the word hospice. You know, people don't just come in there for end of life for the last couple of weeks of their life. It might be that they pop in and out, they dip in and out, depending on their journey of their diagnosis. It could be that people come in for the day and then leave because they've come in for activities, they've come in for a hospital appointment, they've come in for a complementary therapy. So, and the other thing that I always find, well, I suppose it's not surprising, but I want to make sure that we share, is that the services are free. It's accessible to everyone, and they're 24/7, a bit like Kumar was saying at the hospital. And also North London Hospice is not just about being referred for cancer, but we also support other long-term conditions as well. So there is so much more than end-of-life care and beds. It's very much, well, I'm going to go on to slide 2, which will lead us, which will tell you a little bit more. You know, I mentioned about the modern hospice movement. Well, I don't think you can do any presentation about a hospice without talking about Dame Cicely Saunders. She is very much credited as the person behind an idea called treating the patient for total pain. And that's treating the patient holistically for physical, emotional, spiritual and practical pain, everything. And I suppose it's the original, truly person-centered approach. And having that patient in the centre and then surrounding them by a multidisciplinary team of support. And that's very much how we approach caring for people at the hospice. And this wonderful quote is just sums it up in terms of what we do. You matter because you are you, and you matter to the end of your life. We will do all we can, not only to help you die peacefully, but also to live until you die. And I think it comes back to that point you started making, Sue Jane, about actually it can be quite life affirming to get these conversations about your wishes out there, not just focusing on the medical treatments and what you don't want to happen, but how you want to live peacefully at the end. And we can chat, we'll chat about that a bit more with the audience in a minute. Yes, I was just mentioning about the circle of support around the patient literally being person-centred, and that we're not the last few weeks of life. So I'm just going to, again, I'm not quite sure how much the audience know, but I wanted to just flag up our website. It's just been refreshed. Do go and have a look at it. On the left-hand side is our Barnet building. That's where we have our inpatient unit, but also our referral team that call themselves the First Contact Centre. And they're an adept team of nurses and admin staff that when someone phones up for the first time, or maybe, you know, it might be a doctor phoning up for a bit of advice about end of life medication, they have exploratory conversations. They're not having people on a conveyor belt tick boxing. They could spend quite a long time just really assessing, putting that patient's wishes first, or person's wishes first, and just assessing what their needs are. On the right-hand side is our beautiful Winchmore Hill building, built in 2012, and that's my colleague Trudy very much runs. Her task was to make it busy when it first opened sort of 6 or 7 years ago, and get it full of activities. Now a lot of those are going online at the moment, or they're going to be blended, and it's still very much business as usual with all our community there. Oh, one more thing to mention about the inpatient unit over in Barnet. There's a video that's just been put on the website. We can put it on our chat box, but the video is aimed at, because people can't come in, because the patients and their families and carers haven't been able to come in during COVID. We did a little tour of the inpatient unit, and it really it's very reassuring. It really gives you a little insight into the fact it's home from home and the type of environment there. So if we just move on, I'm just going to have a little look inside. I hope this is kind of meeting what people want to know about us, but just very quickly, they say a picture paints 1,000 words. So I thought we'd just have a little look inside our Health and Wellbeing Centre, and you can see it's a very calm, peaceful place. It's a mixture of outdoor and indoor space. The picture of all the people, obviously pre-COVID, it just summarises the approach for us. It's very much about We don't wear uniforms, you don't know who's who, but I know in that picture we've got a real mix of healthcare assistants, art therapists, family, carers, volunteers, staff members. So it's very much about getting people together and supporting people as a whole, as I said. And as you see, there's some activities going on, and so later on maybe Trudy can chat a little bit of our approach about our activities. We know it's not just about the medical side. So we've got the holistic support there, and I think that's it really for the next 5 minutes. I think I'll stop sharing now, and we can perhaps answer some questions and get on to the interesting stuff.
Lovely. And Trudy, did you want to just add a little bit to that at all?
I don't think I will add anything, because I think some things will come up. I think Hannah's given a really good sort of broad overview of what the hospice does. I suppose it is really just to reinforce the fact that we only have, between 3 and 5% in the inpatient unit. Most people are at home, and the Health and Wellbeing Centre supports people very early on. So some of our people may well get into remission, but we are there to support them while they're struggling, perhaps with the side effects of treatment, or just struggling to get back to some sort of normality. So our service is very much in the health and wellbeing side of things, very, very early on, and we often may have people that we see and we actually discharge because they get to a place where they can manage. So it's not all doom and gloom. If you put your foot across the threshold of a hospice, you are likely to walk out again.
I think that's really helpful, actually, Trudy. Trudy Layton is the Associate Director of Health and Wellbeing at the Hospice. And I think that's a really important message to get across, that you're not just there for end of life, you're there to helping people through their once they've had diagnosis. Then that's just time you can actually help people, isn't it? It's that process, which is fantastic. So that's really positive to hear. Thank you so much. So now's the time to go on to the questions. There were a couple of people that wanted to answer their own, but they don't appear to have made it today, so I'm going to ask on their behalf. So the first question is, what is a good death, and how should we as individuals best prepare for it? I'll open it to the floor. Who'd like to answer that?
Hello.
Hello? In the panel, who would like to answer that? Is that Sawani?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Did you want to ask your question? Sorry,
Absolutely. I am actually here.
Fantastic.
Yes, and
okay.
I did want to ask my own question. It's not an issue if you want to ask on my behalf. That's fine. But so yes. So my question. I mean, I actually raised two questions, and I think I'm going to amalgamate them both into one, if that's okay. So yes, the first question, I mean, it's quite a broad question, and I know I wasn't really sure of the expectation of this Zoom meeting. So my question was, what is a good death? And we've had lots to consider and reflect during the COVID period about our own mortality, and if we can call it a good death, what is it, and how should we as individuals prepare for it? And I think the reason why I'm actually asking this question is that, certainly through my own culture, there's very traditional ways of actually mourning and grieving a loss. And I think probably maybe in our modern times, we've lost some of that. And, so really sort of reflecting that, death really is a natural cycle of life, and it's not something to be feared. And our ancestors, I think, were very, very sort of aware of this fact. And so therefore, I think, when the time came, they were very much at peace with it. And I really liked what Dr. Kumar was saying earlier on, about sort of preparation ahead. And I think that's really, really valuable. So really, just coming back to my question is, what can we learn from our ancestors really about how they dealt with death and loss? And, what can we actually say is a good death? Sorry, it's just become very long, but I hope you understand the gist of what I'm trying to say. You know, there's a good death and there's not sort of good death, so that we wound up all our sort of affairs, everything is in order, we're at peace with everybody, we've patched up maybe, you know, people that we've fallen out with, you know, so that, you know, when we go, everything is quite peaceful, that we don't feel there's lots of things left unsaid, and, you know, loose ends, I guess, really, you know, is what I'm saying. I hope that makes sense. I'm sorry it's been such a long-winded question, but yeah.
Thank you, Sawani. Thank you.
Can I?
Please.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. It's very interesting. I think very interesting question. Good death, actually, what we call as the individualized, it depends on individuals, but actually the meaning of good death is actually, it's well known, yes, I'm dying, and family knows and relative knows, yes, I'm dying, and then there is a two roads to death. One is a very difficult road, another one is a normal road. Normal road to death is actually, people will be sleepy, first lethargic, sleepy, semi-comatose, and coma, and they peacefully go. And it's a nice journey. But when they have a difficult road, because of illness, because of all the symptoms, all the, you know, complications, and people will check, you know, confusion and all other complex physical manifestations. And what happens is, during that time, I think where the clinical teams are trying to help to bring them, whether medications, whether psychological, whether sociological, and whether bringing up families inside to hold the hands, and then bringing back to the normal road towards a peaceful journey. And best thing, you know, this hand is a, you know, I had a dying every day. One patient died in this hand, so very, very lucky hand. And so I best treatment I gave is actually holding my dying patient's hand and saying, Richard, it's time to go. We all are here. Families are here, and you can go, because they are, if they are not planned, if they're not discussed, and if they are not ready, and they fight hard to, you know, leave, and then that makes a you know, the fight inside. I think that's called as not a good death. So that's why this Dying Matters Awareness Week we are trying to do. And I think the traditional ways actually, I think I love the 20th question. We need to celebrate the life people want to. Today, especially, today is my birthday. I'm talking about death and dying. I'm 48 years old, and my son is doing an A-level exam, 11:30. I just dropped him. And actually, I said, see, Dad has achieved a lot in this 48 years from different country and reached here. And now I got another 10 or 20 or 15 years. I achieved. That's a celebration. My dad came to the world and I achieved. So I think I read one book about England. Thank you so much. Death in England in 17th century. During that time, people used to have a normal cycle of denial, anger, cry, all of the things they manifested. I think after 18th to 19th, we started to, I mean, the culture started to have a hand keys, like cloths to, you know, small towels to close and wipe the little tears, and have a black dresses. So that's actually a different way we move towards. We thought we are cultured. We thought this is a better way to express, but actually the human feelings of denial, anger, I think our role is actually in India, in Hindu culture, when people die, people dance in front of the journey, the ceremony. So that means we are celebrating. That's called as a good death. I think having everyone said dying around the family, dying around my things where I am around and enjoying. Yes, I achieved this one. I think one patient last week, when I was talking with a dying patient, I was talking about her ferry drive and families around and what she enjoyed going to Malta. People like that kind of things to recall. So that's a beautiful journey we need to give to our people who worked really hard in their whole life to bring the family. So yeah, hope I answered.
You have, thank you. That's really been quite sort of refreshing to hear, having family around, and I think your loved ones is just enormously warming actually in your final moments. And I've known many friends and family who've had the privilege of actually having them close by, and even just to hold their hands. I think it brings a lot of meaning, just as you're saying your final goodbye. So thank you, Dr. Kumar.
Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you. And is Christine here at all? Okay, I'll answer Christine's question on her behalf. She said, how do we in Enfield reach out to our communities and offer additional support and help to our residents? How do we reach out to let everyone know at every level that this sort of support is available to them? So that's kind of open to the whole panel. And that's support just generally about your services. How do you let people know about them? Anna, would you like to?
Yeah, I was so pleased this question was asked, because I'd like to ask Christine more about it. And I think Trudy and I are just having these discussions at the moment, coming out of COVID, and as the day centres are getting back again, how do we go and meet our communities? And yes, as I said at the beginning, our name is known, but often people don't know how to access us. And we are going through a process at the hospice at the moment, a bit of comms rebranding. We're getting all our leaflets redone. So I see this very much as maybe a start of a conversation that we can then pick up. And to be fair, as I said, and with Age UK, we're covering such a huge, diverse population. It might just be trying to work out where we can target for some quick wins. So I'm thinking like the Enfield Conversation Cafe that just was set up, and I thought that could be a really positive place. As I know we haven't got any bereavement cafes in Enfield, or ones that I know about, but it could be that could be a great friendship hub, connection hub, where these sort of conversations can carry on. I'm quite keen as well, not just about sharing about our services, but sharing these conversations around death, dying, loss and grief, that they're not just confined to this 1 week, Awareness Week, but we use this as a start of a connection with all you guys to then take it on. So yes, I'm not sure if I've really answered a question, but I've said I've welcomed it and like to explore it further if anyone wants to add to it.
I mean, Kate, I know that you do a lot of work around this, so perhaps you'd like to add to that, please.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was just going to say, opportunities like this, the event that we're running today, and I know, Healthwatch and all of us run things like this, and it just gets the conversation started. And it's a really good way of networking, not just professionally, but also, the public knowing what's available. And I mean, for us, we've, as I'm sure others have, we've got websites, we've got our website with all of our services on. We're, as we're coming out of lockdown, we're doing an awful lot of work at the moment. Obviously, next week, Monday the 17th, is the next big date that I've certainly got etched on my mind, the 17th of May, when things, more things open up. And for us as an organisation, it means that our in-person groups are starting back, and we've done an awful lot of risk assessing and work over the last few weeks to make sure that those happen, and they happen safely. But we're really looking forward. I mean, me especially, getting out and going to all of the local clubs, the local community groups that are hopefully all going to start back up and going, and promoting our services and linking with people.
Thank you, Kate. I think that's right. A lot of these groups already do a lot of work and network hugely in the community. And small community groups, big community groups. What would you like to say?
I just I just wanted to say that events like this are great, but actually what I always ask if I've been out to anybody is say, please spread the word yourselves as well, because we can only reach so many, but if you can tell, you know, your friends, your family, some of the things you've learnt, it makes a lot of difference. And certainly for Age UK, as well as the hospice, I always ask people to try and spread the word that it's not just about the very end of life. We do so much more than that. And if you can just tell one or two people, it does spread that word out as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I have another question, which is that the person found out about the hospice from a friend, and they wish they'd have actually found out the information sooner, obviously. And again, it's about promoting it, which you've already covered, but they want to say the hospice was fantastic. So although we've already covered that actually answer already, I just want to feedback that they felt that the hospice support and care they did get was really valuable. So thank you for that. That's really useful. And the next question is, when can you access hospice services? And you kind of covered that, but do you have to get a referral? Because people often think they have to be referred to services, but with a hospice, how does it work? Trudy or Hannah,
Yeah.
would you like to cover that?
Shall I answer it?
Yeah, going to start, chip in.
Yeah, yes, you do need a referral, but you can self-refer yourself. So you don't need to go to another healthcare professional. Your GP can do it. Any of if you're involved with a nurse or when you're in hospital with any of the palliative care services or oncology services there, or obviously we also see people without a cancer diagnosis. So anybody that you're involved with can refer, but you can also just phone up the hospice, and the first contact team who take all of the referrals will answer, and they will take some details from you. We have a referral form, but they will fill that in on your behalf. The one thing they will ask you is if you are agreeable for us to contact your GP or your medical consultant, just so that we can make sure we have the right medical details and therefore give you the right treatment, really. But yes, anybody can refer.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah.
And there's a lot about communication. I think we've covered quite a lot about this, but there is obviously a lot of confusion about how to start that conversation. It is a hard one. You know, you're sitting down with a cup of coffee with your relatives. How do you start that conversation to say, I want to talk about planning for my later life, and it's quite uncomfortable, and some people just don't want to talk about it, because if they talk about it, then it's somehow going to wish it on themselves, and it's very emotional, isn't it? Very emotive subject. So it's almost like you kind of want it to be something that people routinely talk about to their families. So how can that work? How could that be installed in people? Is it something we start with children? Is it something we start with young adults? Is there an answer, or is it just lots of ideas that we could throw into the ring about that, really? Who'd like to add to that?
Can I?
Yes, please, Kumar.
I just want to, I'm from hospital, but still I did work in the hospice. I think I love Trudy's ideology we need to pass about positivity among hospices. I think when to refer to add something, when to refer, hospices are doing beyond end-of-life palliative care. They're doing a bereavement services. They're doing some local hospice. They're doing some listening event, how to do listening, communication skills, so that you can, or if there is a bereavement next door, or the somebody bereaved, your relatives, how to do a bereavement support for the friends. So there are a lot of things the hospices can offer, not just because cancer, just because dying, just because. Am I right, Trudy?
Yes, definitely right. Yes, I know you come from a hospice, so yes, you understand fully what is on offer.
Yeah, and also I loved our idea of bringing year 11 or year 12 students to hospice tour. Like my son wants to become a doctor. The reason because he worked in the hospice where I worked. He came as a, insight, that kind of opportunities. So moving on to this question, let me start, then my peers can start. I think within a family, I think when I reached the age of 40, I done my will. So I'm peaceful now. I'm 48, I'm peaceful now. So I've done my job. But same time, that is the kind of looking for the momentum within our day-to-day life. Is the momentum comes when we remortgage the house, and when the momentum comes when somebody passed away, then when the momentum comes when there is some occasions we need to attend, or the momentum comes when my father died January 3rd. So every January 3rd, culturally we do something. So like going to the graveyard or something. So that kind of things we can pick. We don't need to, this Sunday I'm going to talk about death and dying with my family. No, we don't. So there are a lot of opportunities, but actually I think it is a responsible family individual. It is an opportunity. So I think like my kids are talking about Bitcoin. Dad, don't save the money in Bitcoin and all. What's Bitcoin? So they are telling us the financial things. So now we are talking about seeing the momentum. So don't lose the momentum. When you get a momentum, I think we need to plan what happens, so that's my ideology within a normal family life.
You're right, Kumar. And I think, when I was doing funeral plans, it was like, I wish that some people had, when they get a mortgage, when the big life events, like when they get a mortgage, when they get married, when they have children, all of those, and they think about wills, they don't necessarily think about the next stages, because, none of us know how long we've got. We're not all going to live till 90s and 100s. But it's just, it's having that kind of action plan in place is really comforting. And I think it's really useful because you can kind of forget about it. Once you've done it, you kind of forget about it. You know what you want. Your plans are outlaid. You've had the conversations, however difficult that might be. It's really comforting. And I think there's another thing about funeral plans. When someone's actually asked about it, where they said that their family refuses to actually discuss it with them because it's like bad luck. Again, it's having those conversations, being honest, at least letting people know what you want and what you don't want. I think is really important. It's giving people that respect as well, so they know. I haven't got to think about it themselves either. I've got to think what they think you want, which is great. There was the question about financial support for families when people pass away. Have you had that at all? Is there any?
I'm just going to add something, Sue Jane, about that, if that was okay. Please. Just agreeing with Kumar. It's about any life change. It's planning ahead and taking that moment of momentum at any life change, making those conversations just normal part of life. And maybe in terms of if someone is not wanting to talk about it, and it's quite direct to say, what are your wishes? What are your plans? Perhaps give something of yourself first and have it a sharing conversation around for both of you. This is what I'd quite like. What do you think? And there's a huge amount of tips on the website, and I know we're going to give all the attendees today a take-home guide of advice. So, for example, you can go onto the Marie Curie Talk About website, and you can order, it's free, a little pack of cards, little playing cards of conversation starters. So again, we put that for everyone to take away. So the tips are out there. There's a lot to say about it. And hopefully, if anyone wanted to carry on that conversation, explore that further, love to.
Thank you, Hannah. And she's produced this amazing document with loads of fantastic links we will be sharing with you. It'll be on our website, so you can actually click on it later as well. Yeah. So there's a lot of information in there, some fantastic links. So we are going to
just add one other thing. Sorry, it's only because it's so fresh in my mind and Trudy's mind as well, because we did an event in Barnet a couple of days ago, and we used it was an event called What Matters Conversations, exactly what Kumar said, having meaningful conversations at any point of life. And that information is going to be on there. And the What Matters conversations are almost a little bit, they're not changing the outcomes of advanced care planning, but they're very much entwined in it. They're early, more upstream conversations, just identifying and giving time to valuing these conversations about what do you treasure, what do you value most in life. And it goes back to what you were saying about it being life affirming. Are you a bath or a shower person? Do you like a whiskey or a glass of wine? What are the things that will help your priorities and making a good death? Because a good death is different for everyone, isn't it? Really, it depends what your priorities are. But yeah, just practice those conversations earlier on. Maybe not with the teens though, because they always think whatever you say is cringeworthy. But
Thank you, Hannah. That's great. And there's some couple of questions about funerals themselves. As somebody says, I don't have a religion. Can I have a non-religious service when the time comes? Is that something that's available? Who'd like to answer that one for me?
I mean, my understanding is there is a humanist service that you can have, which is a non-religious service. Funnily enough, we ran a death cafe yesterday, and we talked quite a lot about a lot of these questions actually. But we had quite a lot of conversations about direct funerals, as they're being called. So funerals where actually people are, when they die, are taken straight to the funeral home, and then they are cremated alone at some point in the future. The family and friends might know, but actually it isn't a service within a crematorium or a church or whatever. And for some people, they were saying, actually, I'd quite like that. And then I'd like a bit of a knees up afterwards, you know, and not have people at the service. So there are lots of opportunities for not having a religious event, but also there are opportunities for not having an event at all and maybe just having a party or a wake afterwards. We also had some people that said they'd quite like to, I've got a friend who has said she'd quite like to have the funeral before she dies, because actually she wants to be there. She wants to hear what people say about her. She wants to see her mates, and she wants to be part of the party. So, you know, it was just quite interesting. But yes, you don't have to have a religious service.
That's great. Thank you very much. And there's a question about organ donorship as well, that people have a card but don't always carry it with them. They might change their handbag, or they might go out quickly in the car, or whatever it is, you know, go shopping. Can older people be an organ donor? Anyone like to answer that one, please?
Yeah, I'll try. My understanding, actually, if you don't have a card also, I think if you informed your GPs, and there is a health record, will have an organ donation thing, and that is my first understanding. And number two is, today we are rolling out, not today means recently we rolled out Coordinate My Care. So, and possibly there is a much more opportunity to see the wishes and preferences across the teams. So that's my understanding about organ donation. Is there anyone else in our team?
Yeah, I mean, the law to do with organ donation changed, didn't it? About a year ago, it might be just be over, where you actually have, it's an opt-out system now, as well, unless you've made it known that you do not wish to donate. Your family and loved ones, I think, would still be asked, but actually you need to opt out rather than opt in. And again, yes, any age of people can donate organs. We have some, depending on what you may die of, you may be restricted. So I know for predominantly cancer patients, they can only donate their corneas. So we do have a number of people here who do corneal donation, but it is open, yeah, for any age, really. And the other thing that some of our patients have done, if they can't donate and they want to donate something, they've donated their whole body to medical research. And again, that has to be, it all has to be done in advance, so that there is a bit of work to be done beforehand. So it is worth thinking about it, and if it's something you wish to pursue, speak to a medical practitioner who would help you organise that.
I think it's also about having that conversation, letting your family know that that's what you want, so they haven't got to be the ones to think about it. Again, you know, mum said or dad said or sister said she did want it, so it's an easy thing to have a conversation about, then, isn't it, when that time comes?
Really, yes. I mean, I know my son, when he was still at school, I knew my son, well, he was in his last year at 18, and he said he wanted to donate everything except his eyes, you know. So it is worth having those conversations, so you've got some understanding. And of course things might change, and you might change your mind, and then you can change, you know. It's not set in stone, these things. They're as you go through life, you change, don't you? So sometimes your thoughts and your feelings change as you get older as well, as to what you do and don't want to do, but certainly worth that conversation.
Thank you, that's great. And my mum's had a terminal diagnosis and we're all in shock. how can we help mum through this difficult time, and what help is there from the family? And I know the hospice has covered some of that already about how you help the whole person and so on. Is there any other thoughts around that at all?
Well, I suppose if it was me, I would be asking for a referral into the hospice, number one, because they can then support you from now onwards, and support not only your mum but the family too, and our teams can help you perhaps to have conversations you feel you might want to have but don't know how to go about them, and can just support you through what is a time that, you know, can be very difficult and frightening, and just have, you know, another person there that you can call or speak to or come in and see us, and we offer nice things as well. So we do have some, out of COVID times, we have quite a lot of complementary therapy and relaxation sessions, just like Age UK does as well. So there are a lot of things that can make it more bearable. So I personally would say get referred to if you're in Enfield, get referred to North London Hospice.
Fantastic. And are there any hints on tips on what to say and not what to say to friends or family who have received a terminal diagnosis? Because it's quite, you know, it's we don't come furnished with a book on how to, do we? That's the thing. And you know, you're dealing with your own emotions and fears and concerns and everything else. So people often don't know what to say, and then sometimes they hide away because it's easier than having to think about what to say. Any hints or tips on that at all?
Yeah. I think the best communication is listening, and so when I go and see the patients, I think in this difficult conversations, I think the first, there is a science, there is a evidence. People know if they got a terminal illness, people know when they're going to die, or when means they are dying or not. They know the conditions. Like I know I got a bald head. Yeah, so I know my heart is not well. So we know. So that's a key message. Yes, they know. We don't need to be frightened. And if there is a thing and we can say how you're feeling, then just keep silent. Let them talk and accept, okay, I can see what else you want to do. So that kind of, you know, it's a healthcare professional's approach, but still we can use it. Listen and let them talk. Basically, they want to just to talk to somebody, their anxiety and thing. I think our friend Trudy beautifully said, engaging with the teams like hospices, and also in hospital, the doctors and the doctor who broke the bad news, they're happy to support, and they've given us some contact details, like you can call and you can talk, and there is a hospital palliative teams, they can they can be contacted. And I think our friend also given a take-home message. There's a lot of support phone numbers and the contact things they can talk. And sometimes in some top tips is actually allowing, do you want to see your friend mom? Do you want to see your friend dad? So that kind of the peer thing. So, or just pushing, dad, you want to see, or telling a friend, do you want to come and see my dad? I think we went to hospital. He likes your company. So giving opportunities. So
that's lovely. It's kind of nurturing, and that listening bit is really important, because we just try and fix everything, and we can't always do that. It's kind of an inert thing to try and mend everybody and everything, and it's not always possible. But what we can do is be there for them, listen to them, and give them that respect. I think it's really important during that period of time.
Yeah.
So we've got another question, and it's actually about hospitals. So maybe you again, Kumar. It says, COVID's made people passing in hospital really difficult because they haven't always been able to have visitors. So how do hospital staff support them? You have mentioned it, you've mentioned the holding the hand, you've mentioned that respect and being there for that individual. It must be kind of tough on the staff as well, having to do that, but it's just, what else can be done other than just literally being there? Because that's almost as important as anything else, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's really interesting question. Sometimes we don't, I just recently hear the best project they did is about video conferencing. Last 1.5 years, like 18 months in the journey of North Med's supporting end-of-life care journey. So what they did is every ward, they got an iPad. And when the patients are dying, and with the permission of next of kin, because there's a policy, we will be allowing only one relatives during the end of life. So then what happened is, so the clinicians, they said, do you want to talk to your relatives abroad or anywhere in Spain or anywhere? So they hold it up iPad, they enable the conversations between the patients and the relatives who were. So I think we got a really good support and feedback about digital or video conferencing opportunities. So then we want to roll out for every other incidents also in the hospital. And bereaved carers, I think there is a we are depending on we have a psychologist, but also we have a North London Hospice support services. We are working closely together. That's what the message we want to tell. My consultant is working in North London Hospice. North London consultant is working in my team. So we know there is a seamless service. So that's why the things are really getting better. What I saw death and dying in 2005 when I was working in St. Joseph Hospice thing. So we really moved well.
I think that's really useful.
Something, sorry, Sue Jane, but I sit on the ethics committee for the North Mid, and actually they've done an awful lot of work on supporting the families after death, and there's been an awful lot, both with, as I say, with North Mid, some personalised information and some the offers of support that have gone out, but also the local authority have also backed that up, and it's a real issue about how we can make sure that particularly when people have died from COVID and the family haven't been as able to go in person to support, how we can move that forward. And I also should say that in Enfield that we are looking about how we can do a memorial to the people who have died, not just from COVID, people who have died, but obviously from COVID. And I personally have to congratulate the North Mid. I think they've paid this some real attention, and they've done and they've had some tributes from the families, but they've done some really good work on that.
Yeah, I think memory tree we created. So who were passed away during the COVID in our hospital, there's a big wall, memory tree wall, and the families we are sending a cards to the family, and families are writing the comments, and then they are writing the names who passed away last 18 months, and we are writing the names, and it was a hand given. Is it that's the one thing we are remembering, people who passed away in the hardest time of in the history of the world.
Thank you, Kumar, that's fun. And thank you, Noel, that's really nice feedback. Thank you. And there's a question that I really like, actually, about, we've touched on this already, and it says, I want to encourage my family to throw a big party to celebrate my life, because I think that's better than focusing on my passing. How best can I explain this to them? Now, I'm from an Irish background, and my family are big on parties when someone, the wakes are like, can be days long, and I've had to put a savings account aside for my wake. So I can completely relate to this question. So how best can you actually say to your family, do you know what? I want a huge party. I want to make this a celebration. I want this to be such a positive event that I go out on a bang, if you like. How best can you do that in a way that the family won't sort of go, what? Any thoughts on that? Hannah?
Well, it just reminded me in 2019 we had a Dying Matters event in Barnet, and we actually had a theatre group come along who did just that. It was a play about someone who wanted to be at the wake, they wanted to be at the party before their death, which threw up some interesting conversations. And the audience were invited to participate in this party because we were literally given balloons and champagne to drink during this Dying Matters event. So it's something that's been, I'm just observing, I haven't really got any thoughts, but I think it's just about embracing it and starting to talk about it with the family. And certainly there's been theatre pieces and cultural events on it as well. That's just my penneth to add to that bit.
No, that's lovely, thank you. And like I say, there's an awful lot of information in the chat box, and also in the details we're going to put on our website later on. So you haven't got to remember anything today. You know, you can look at all this later. We are recording this, so you can go back and rewind if you need to. That's great. And the last question was on about age, and I think we touched on that already, about when is the best time. You know, what age should we start thinking about later life planning? And I kind of guess it's individual perspective, it's what your circumstances are, but we talked about maybe involving children in hospices and so on and so forth. So any other thoughts to add to that at all? No. Oh, Kate, yes.
Yep, sorry, I was just going to say a couple of things. I just think, as it's been mentioned several times, it's the communication, isn't it, and using opportunities to discuss these things. I mean, I was talking just the other day. I've been involved in several events this week to do with dying matters, and I was talking to somebody about how me and my husband have spoken to our children about it, and about how, you know, I think there's this fear, isn't there? This one of the underpinning things is this fear of upsetting people and having these difficult conversations. But it's also about normalising it as well. Because I remember, I mean, my mother-in-law died last year, and having those conversations with the children, and we had a close friend die before, and you know, kind of again it normalizes it, and doesn't it, and with children obviously in an age appropriate way, but you know, death and illness, unfortunately, you know, it's part of life, isn't it? And so it's just about having those conversations. And I was also just going to say about kind of the planning aspect, because obviously part of what I do is I run awareness sessions on talking about wills, lasting power of attorney, advanced care decisions and things. And one of the things that people commonly say to me is, well, when I kind of ask about lasting power of attorney, and you know, have you considered it, do you know what it is, etc., people say to me, oh, it's for old people, it's for people who are poorly, which absolutely, you know, if you haven't got it in place, then, and you have a diagnosis of something, or you know, you're getting older, then absolutely it's something you should consider. But it's something I feel quite passionate about, is that I would recommend that everybody, regardless of age, it's something to consider, certainly with lasting power of attorney. And when you're thinking about capacity, you know, about your ability to make informed decisions. I mean, I'm 41, and you know, I've got lasting power of attorney for my husband's got it for me. You know, I'm fit and well, you know, touch wood, at the moment, but you know, I could go out and I could be run over, I could have an accident, and I could be incapacitated short term or long term. It could happen to any of us. So I think, you know, it's something, you know, that we all need to be considering, and it's about looking at those opportunities, grasping those opportunities for discussion when they come up. And the last thing I'll say, I don't want to go on too long, but with lasting power of attorney and wills, I think there's an opportunity there. I think Kumar was saying about, you know, life circumstance changes, and you know, the significant kind of milestones in your life where, you know, where these things are kind of tend to be thought about. I remember when my first child was born, and me and my husband were like, right, we're going to, you know, sort out guardians, we're going to sort out wills and things. And I think, you know, these are topics that are difficult to talk about, but actually wills and lasting power of attorney, they're a specific process. You know, you've got form filling, there's a specific kind of process that you have to go through. So for me, I think, you know, that can be, if it is difficult to have those conversations, it's quite a practical way of getting the ball rolling, and then out of those, you know, that form filling, that kind of having those conversations about lasting power of attorney, about who's going to be a witness, certificate provider, whatever, then that's opportunity again there to speak about other things, you know, to do with later life and health and other things that might crop up. So
I think you're right, Kate. I mean, we have insurance for our car, we have insurance for our house just in case. Later life planning in my book is insurance for not knowing and leaving things undone. So it's kind of like, for me, it's getting that kind of perspective on it, if you like. So that's great. Thank you, Kate. I really appreciate that. So we've used up all the questions that we've had pre-submitted now. So before you all go, what I'd love you to do, please, is we'd like some feedback on the session. We've put the link into the chat box. We'd like to hear how we can improve things, what you'd like to see in future events, what topics you'd like us to cover. There's also loads and loads of wonderful information in there about support, about links for organisations such as the fabulous ones here and beyond. So please do have a look at that. And remember, if you need more information on health and social care, Healthwatch Enfield are here for you. And our contact number is 02 08 373 6283. And we're going to put our number and the email address in the chat box in a mo, so that's great. But before you go, please, thank you to everybody that came today. Really appreciate your time. And to the panel, thank you so much. And Kumar, on your birthday, that is just amazing. I feel very blessed that you came today. Thank you so much and shared your birthday with us. So thank you all once again, and I really hope that you'll join us for future sessions. Do check out our website for the updates, and thank you to all of you for coming. I really appreciate it, and think about future life planning. Thank you so much, and goodbye.
Goodbye.